Top of the morning, classmates. We are at the Royal Canadian Henley, the most prestigious rowing regatta in North America. I'm so sorry I could not be in person to present to you all, but I thought the next best thing was to immerse you into this subculture.
The origin of modern rowing looks quite different from this sleek, week-long international race. Modern rowing has a humble beginning in the early 17th century on the River Thames. Working-class, professional rivermen raced their barges and ferries. It became such a popular sensation that nearby wealthy schools and colleges, such as Eton, formed their own amateur clubs. Here is where the subculture changed. In 1829, the Oxford versus Cambridge race, which is known as the boat race till this day, stamped rowing as a gentleman's sport. 194 years later, the rowing rivalry between the two universities is still going strong. The rivalry between Harvard and Yale, starting in 1852, further solidified the gentleman image of the sport in the U.S. Then, Schuylkill Navy was founded in 1858. For Philadelphia natives, that's historic Boathouse Row. If you ever wondered what the interior of one of these 12 boathouses looked like, here are some from my palm photos from Undine. What makes Schuylkill Navy important to the sport is that it established rowing as an amateur, not a professional sport. Amateur sports are allowed into the Olympics, and that's what happened. In 1896, the founder of the modern Olympics, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, a rower himself, included rowing in the Olympics. Gentlemen rowing races back then drew crowds and were part of the mainstream culture. Competitions were regularly covered in major newspapers and were the talk of the town. In 1930s, the culture evolved once again, when the rugged schools in the West, like the University of Washington, challenged the Ivy League culture. These tree loggers with meek financial backing were out-toughing the establishment. Today, University of Washington, which rowers call UW, is such a powerhouse in this subculture that they have a signature body type. Height factors most prominently in this norm. Rowers are typically between 6'2" to 6'6". In this photo from the 1930s, the UW rowers towered over the coxswains, who tend to be smaller in stature. The coxswain does not row. Instead, the role is to steer the boat and execute the race strategy by setting the rowing cadence. Because the boat doesn't want to carry any extra weight, coxswains are usually lighter individuals. Nonetheless, these rowers have their signature long legs to extend each stroke, which makes the boat more efficient. I am 6'1", and considered short for rowing. Another UW norm is that they select athletes whose bodies naturally process lactic acid faster than others. In 1972, Title IX showed how policy can upend a subculture. Not only did Title IX increase women's participation in the sport, kicking off with the first women's Olympic race in 1976, and culminating in today's statistic of 48% of rowers being female, it changed the scholarship structure for men, so that the rare men's rowing scholarship generally goes to high-performing international students. At Temple, for example, the two men's scholarships were awarded to Germans this year. 25% and 35% of rowers at Yale and Princeton, respectively, are recruited from Europe. Every subculture has an image or personality. Looking from the outside, rowing may conjure up an image of a white, male Abercrombie & Fitch model from an affluent, uptight, but well-connected family, quietly rowing down the Charles River on a Harvard wooden boat from a Victorian clubhouse with a hefty membership fee. When you are in the subculture, however, rowers are more than the stereotype. Yes, the sport is unfortunately 73% white, and in my boat club, I am named the other Asian. As a whole, rowers are a mentally tough crowd who live to glide down the river at 5 a.m. every morning with frozen, callous hands. They develop an inseparable bond that comes from taking 200 perfectly synchronized strokes over and over again. Rowers have to be aggressive, but the subculture is also fun-loving, with a healthy dose of gloating and teasing. In the Philadelphia area, for example, there is a team that seems undefeatable, and thus become the target of much teasing and united celebration when they do lose occasionally. After a loss, they may find photos of the winning team with cigars in their mouths and gold medal around the neck, posing in front of the losing team's boathouse. That said, rowing is a tight-knitted community. Competitors are always friendly and fair to each other. Cheating is rare, and any move that may be considered cheating is frowned upon. Rowing is done in uni-suits and socks. There isn't much room to accessorize on the water apart from sunglasses, sandals, and hats. Out of the water, however, the fashion can be unique. Rowers love their button-down shirts and striped blazers with the insignia of their club. At the British Henley, spectators don their dirty, wine-stained blazers proudly because the tradition is to never launder the blazer. Women had to wear dresses that cover their knees until last year, and they usually wear wide-brimmed hats or fascinators. At terms of languages and rituals, at my club, we also have a ritual of speeches at dinner. We also have a secret hand gesture that I cannot divulge. In terms of language, there are terminologies for every body position possible in the boat. Remember, the rowers cannot take their hands off the oars in the boat, and they face the same direction, so they must rely on exact terminology to synchronize. The few terms that non-rowers may come across are sweep versus scull. Sweeping is done with each rower managing one oar. It is the version of rowing that's most popular in America and featured most prominently in the Olympics. Sculling is done with each rower handling two oars. You see this type of rowing internationally. Tempo only sweeps, for example. In addition, rowers are defined by their 2K. That is how long it takes them to complete 2,000 meters on the erg, the stationary rowing machine. Due to long hours on the erg, having a playlist of hard-style music like dubstep and metal is necessary to keep rowers pulling. Under norms, we already spoke about height and lactic acid processing. Another norm of this subculture is lung capacity. Elite rowers have a lung capacity of 11 liters compared to 6 for the average male. Also, because there aren't a lot of universities with a strong rowing program, and those with a good program tend to be competitive, it's not uncommon for rowers to have the highest GPA among university athletes. That is the case with Temple. SES, which we will talk about in the next slide, may also be a factor. We already touched on the topic of race, gender, and countries in the rowing subculture. Suffice it to say here that U.S. Rowing has established a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council to influence the makeup of the subculture. In this slide, I listed the international characteristics of the subculture. First and foremost, the subculture emphasizes motivation and discipline. Rowers must demonstrate why they deserve a spot on the fastest boat. In addition, no matter how talented, a rower is useless if they can't row well with others. Thus, cooperation on and off the boat is paramount. At up to $25,000 per boat, not to mention travel costs to suitable bodies of water and club fees. It's not surprising that rowing traditionally attracts those with higher SES, who tend to be more educated and politically conservative. Also, countries where rowing is popular have a Christian history, although some research suggests that many Ivy League rowers are atheists. For me, I grew up around sports. My father is a football player turned world champion cyclist. My mother is a martial artist turned yogi. My sister was a junior Olympic fencer, and my grandfather raced his rally car all over the world. Me, I was a chubby, slow, unathletic, and unmotivated kid. I love my food, and still do, but now I have a means to burn off my love for calories with an even bigger love for rowing. Without rowing, I would be the same depressed 200-pound kid today. I struggle to sustain attention on topics I don't find exciting. In high school, I was bullied, which caused tremendous anxiety. Rowing became my remedy. Rowing is meditation for my anxiety. The competition provides excitement and helps release steam. The most alluring part of rowing is that it ties me to a tribe that I trust with my life. Together, we navigate new rivers and borrow each other's strength. Rowing literally saved my life. I feel peace when I hear the crack of the oar feathering. I feel guided when I hear the directions of the coxswain. I feel connected when I feel the synchronized pain with my teammates on the boat. Sometimes, people feel none of it. Rowing gives me energy, clarity, and insights into life outside of the boat. I think these feelings are what attract many to this subculture. If this video has piqued any of your interest about the rowing subculture, Philadelphia is the perfect place to give this sport a try. There are many Learn to Row programs for use in the area, or you can contact me. Here are some recent resources on the subculture.